Hi, I'm Jack, and welcome back because I'm going to give you guys a review for the newest film by Pixar, Turning Red. It is directed by Domee Shi, and it stars Rosalie Chiang and a variety of voice actors in this movie. And before we get started, don't forget to follow me on social media. Let me know down below in the comment section, what are your thoughts on this movie? If you've seen it yet, I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to follow me on social media. My username is down below at the bottom of the screen and in the description below, so don't forget to do that while you're at it. And with that said, let's get started. Turning Red follows 13-year-old Mei Lee, who is torn between being loyal to her mother while also trying to embrace the chaos of being a youthful teenager, and at some point she somehow wakes up and turns into a big red panda, and she tries to find a way to fix all of this. I love Pixar, so naturally I was really looking forward to seeing what this movie is going to be about. I know that the director Domee Shi directed the award-winning short film Bao, which I really enjoyed. And I love Pixar in general. I love the Toy Story movies and The Incredibles and Ratatouille and Monsters Incorporated and a lot of stuff they put out. And I have loved Onward, Luca, and Soul. So naturally I was really looking forward to seeing what Turning Red was going to be all about. And I didn't have as high expectations because of it, but I walked into the movie just waiting to see what does Pixar have in store with this movie, and it's a fun movie. Kicking off the positives, I really liked the voice acting. As a whole, I really liked Rosalie Chiang as Mei Lee, the lead character. I really liked just her dynamic and how I feel the humanity within her voice in the role here. And just with the whole crew, I thought everyone's really great. And just like in normal Pixar fashion, the animation is great here. Pixar always finds a way to look really great and consistent, or even top what they did before with animation here. I really like the animation on when Mei turns into a red panda, and even some of the stuff in the third act I think looks really great. I really like the animation style in this movie. It never fails when it comes from Pixar. And there are some really entertaining moments throughout with Mei and her friends. I really like the friend group. I thought the dynamic they had was really fun to watch, and it feels a little relatable, especially as we're following teenagers. And they do love boy bands, that is for sure. They love boy bands and all that. So they have some of that in there, so teenagers can find a way to relate to that, especially nowadays. And I really liked a lot of scenes they had with each other, whether it's them trying to embrace the fact that just what happens with Mei in this movie, I think really nice to see. I really enjoyed that, and I really dug the message of the movie, and I liked how the red panda she turns into is basically a metaphor for puberty. This is it's one of the Pixar movies that has some more mature topics, especially stuff like Soul, for instance. I really liked how her turning into a red panda is basically a metaphor for puberty, as how she's 13 years old, she's going through changes, and how it responds to just all the things that's happening in her life with school, with her peers, with her family. And I really liked that stuff. I think there's a great idea there, and I really like just the stuff that's happened throughout. And I like that that's what the red panda represent in this movie, and also how it ties with their family and all that. I think it's just a really nice stuff. I really like the concept of this movie. I think it's a great idea, and I think there are moments I think it works really well. And I think I liked how it just, again, it teaches you about just embrace the craziness and how we're growing up, how she's not a little kid anymore, and that this red panda is sort of like just her trying to realize, just embrace it. Like, she's getting older, and how it comes into contact with her mom, which is a huge point in the movie with the relationship between Mei and her mother. And I think at times I feel like I can't help but be like, the mother's doing things that can be a little too over the top, a little too out there and crazy and pretty embarrassing, especially for Mei. So there are some moments where I kind of sat there as like pretty terrified. I was like, yikes, with the stuff that's happened between them and how Mei feels about that, and just how it affects this whole movie as a whole. And I thought that stuff is really great. So I really liked just the message of the movie. I liked what the red panda stood for, and I liked the animation and how just this whole idea, like what that means in this movie. I think I just really dug it. It's a really entertaining movie, and those who love Pixar, you should find something to love here. However, this is probably one of my least favorite Pixar movies that has come out in the past few years, probably since Cars 3. Now, it's still a good movie. I still enjoyed it, but this movie didn't emotionally impact me or mess with my heartstrings the way other movies did, like with the ending of Soul, with Toy Story 4, with Incredibles, or even Onward. I never felt like Turning Red deeply affected me. I can relate to some of the aspects I think of puberty can definitely be relatable and things where I'm like, I understand how that feels. But I never felt like this movie made me tear up to a point where it felt like I was emotionally devastated the way some other Pixar movies have been able to do in the past. And I also feel like some moments just it takes a bit to get into. It doesn't happen until right around the 15 to 20 minute mark, and that's when the movie finally starts to kick in. Because when it first starts, it's just like, here's Mei, here's the friends dynamic, and then it doesn't really start to pick up for me until she finally like the red panda thing starts to come into motion. And I think everything before that feels like it's just slowly trying to get there, and I'm not quite as invested until when the moment happens, and then we go on this journey, because I think once she becomes a red panda, then the movie gets a lot more entertaining than it was when it started. And the plot, I think, again, great ideas, and it's still well done for the most part, but there are moments where I feel like it felt predictable to me. I had a feeling that this was how the movie was going to end with Mei, and I ended up being correct. And I feel like they didn't do much in this movie to surprise me, like, oh, maybe it's going to end up this way, and then Misdirected actually did that. And I felt like from midway through the movie, I had a feeling like this is how it's gonna end. And for the most part, I was right. It was like, okay, it didn't do anything that shocked me. It didn't do a lot of twists and turns. It didn't have a lot of twists. Like I thought, like the ending was Soul, like the Soul movie did, or even with Luca, and even with movies like Toy Story 4 and such. I feel like this movie felt more predictable than some of the past films have been. And I feel like while it did do a solid job of just telling the kind of story that's being told here, it didn't do a lot of things that surprised me. So therefore, I'm not quite as shocked as I usually would be with a Pixar movie. And some of the plot points just don't quite hook me. Like kids love boy bands, and I think that whole aspect of her and like the high school and how it's like, how do they react to the fact that she can turn into a red panda? It's fine. And I think some parts of the movie I feel like are just okay, especially some segments in the middle of the movie that involves boy bands. And I think while I do like the dynamic between Mei and her friends, the boy band stuff I don't quite relate to, because I don't know. I do know there are going to be people who will relate to that, and that's a great thing. But I never felt like some of the aspects there, I feel like, quite were as good, because I did really like that idea of Mei and her mother, that story between the two of them, and even with the family, and her trying to see if there's a way to like just get rid of the red panda thing, get rid of the red panda from her. That I was more interested in that side of the movie than I was when it comes to the boy band and just this whole, how do some of the high schoolers just react to it. I think it's fine. It's not a bad idea, but it doesn't quite hook me the way the storyline between Mei and her mother did, even though at times her mom can do some really questionable things when it comes to how she handles just Mei and any stuff that happens with her. So yeah, it can be pretty predictable, so it doesn't quite surprise me as much as others do. And some points are pretty predictable to a point where I know how this is going to play out, and it doesn't emotionally impact me the way other movies do. And that's a bummer, because Pixar, even in some of the recent movies, have been able to make me tear up at a moment in time. This movie, there are a few moments where I feel like it could have got something out of me, but they probably needed just a little more time with that, and then maybe. But I didn't feel as emotionally just devastated by some of the events that happened in the movie. And yeah, it's a fine movie. I think this is surprisingly one of the more polarizing Pixar movies, and I don't think it's as bad as some people online are making it out to be. I think it's still on the surface level, there's a lot of great things to find here when it comes to this movie and Pixar with the animation and the voice acting and just the story ideas and some entertaining moments. You still have that here. And I do think it's actually paced really well too, but it's not quite as emotionally deep as the other films are, at least not to me. But in the end, I find Turning Red to just be a movie where it's a fun movie. I enjoyed watching it, and it's not high tier Pixar, but that is tough to do. So it's a movie that I enjoyed. I had some fun watching it, but it didn't quite stick with me or just blow me away. So in the end, I am going to give Turning Red a B plus, and I highly recommend it if you love Pixar. I am shocked that this movie is as polarizing as it is online, especially with the whole, it's a lot more mature than probably what you're used to with Pixar, but I thought it was a great idea, and I thought I liked I think the kind of messages it's trying to give. I think it's a good idea. Its heart was in the right place. I just think some things aren't quite as strong as others, and in terms of the wider catalog from Pixar, it's not quite high tier. It's more mid-tier Pixar to me, and I do wish this movie got a theatrical release because it's a great looking movie and it's Pixar. So, and it just bums me out that it just got shafted for Disney Plus. That's a bummer. I think this movie really deserved a theatrical release, and yeah, it's just an interesting movie because of how people respond to it, because I know people who really like Turning Red, love Turning Red, people who weren't a fan of the movie, and it's interesting because of how people respond to what it tackles and just maybe some of the character or plot points in the film. So it's interesting. I didn't expect this for Turning Red, but it's a good enough movie, and I do recommend it. It's definitely worth a watch on Disney Plus if you have a subscription to it. And those are my thoughts on Turning Red. What did you think of the movie? Let me know down below in the comment section. I'd love to hear it. And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe button. And thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys will stay tuned for more.